just cover off this Toronto middle eights, how it will work.
Yeah.
Where will they be based? It's going to work how any other team works, apart from the fact that you might see them get 2 fixtures back to back. But hey, they've got 4 home fixtures.
But that's always going to happen. That would happen naturally. Leeds might have 2 back to back because they've got a cricket match on or something.
Yeah,
it's
or
no different.
Wigan or Huddersfield or Hull FC, who all share games with football teams. And at this stage of the season, one of the stupidity issues with this isn't just that we don't know the fixtures for a quarter of the season, but it's also that we're now behind the 8 ball on when we put our fixtures. So we're in, whether you're a primary tenant or a secondary tenant, football fixtures are fixed now. Tickets are sold for upcoming games, big games, because of like your home kickoff and that sort of game, right? So we're now having to fit our fixtures in. So it makes it more complicated for us to organise.
Yeah,
so you're going to inevitably end up with back-to-back games at certain times, or people who are forced to play one home game on a Sunday and then
or a kick-off on a Monday or something,
Friday or something like that, and 2 games really close together and that sort of stuff.
And from a staff point of view, from my point of view, I know last year and the year before, when I was kind of trying to plan things, and it was impossible, and the amount of clashes and problems I had because you just had this, quarter of the season, this 3-month window effectively where you didn't know what on earth you were doing.
Yeah.
You had to kind of block, and I missed a couple of games because I was on holiday, various other things. Because you naturally you do plan ahead, you book things in, you say, I can do that. Oh,
you have to.
I'm free that date.
When you're working at these part-time clubs, these lower league clubs, most people are volunteers, like yourself and stuff, and you've got to book your holidays in your real jobs.
And I found this.
You can't just phone up. Yeah. You can't just go to work and say, well, actually, now I need to be at home that weekend, so can I have the previous week off instead to go abroad? Oh, and now I'll have to rechange my flights. And it just the real world doesn't work like that for those players at that level. So I don't think this is a Toronto problem. I think this is a problem with the structure.
Yeah, I think this is a wider problem.
Yeah.
Because and I found this year with going back to a fixed fixture format has been so much easier because I knew in January, I knew exactly which weekends I was free, when I had one clash of something I booked a year ago, but other than that, I was able to plan, move everything around, and that's what fans will do. Fans will do exactly the same. They'll, if you give them the fixtures well enough in advance, they'll say, I can't do that, and there'll always be the odd one.
Yeah.
But if you get enough, it doesn't matter.
Now,
but equally, with enough notice, most things are shiftable.
Gareth's right to pick out Toronto in a sense. I think there's a longer term conversation about what's going on with Toronto. There's still the nonsensical situation where there's question marks about if they earn promotion, do they get to be promoted? What happens with the fixtures next year? Super League clubs want to prevent them playing in blocks because they want to remove some competitive advantage. What they actually want to do is stop them playing in blocks to provide themselves with a competitive advantage, because you'll see Wigan will play a block of games away from home in a row for pitch reworks and stuff like that. Salford,
the interesting
a quirk of the fixtures, ended up having a month without a home game this season, for example. So,
and with the travel, I don't know how much going back and forth actually, because it kills the away side going to Toronto as much as it does the travel, affects and foreshadows probably 2 weeks either side of the actual fixture. If you think about all the adjustments you have to do and whatever.
The point to that is that the clubs want Toronto to have the same week by week impact. So actually, what Toronto will have is more impact on them to disadvantage them. There's lots of conversations.
I think it's just a one way street. I think it'll have impact either way.
And Toronto, whether they play in blocks, how that works out and stuff like that, I don't really think, in terms of the middle eights, I don't think it's a huge concern, because everyone's got to fit their fixtures in, and like we've talked about, other clubs will have fixture requirements in there. So There's more problems than just Toronto in that sense. Karsten Brummer got in touch by email to say, I was the chairman of a hockey club for 3 years, and the statement of Derek Beaumont reads like a bad excuse for me. The interest of an owner or chairman should always be the mid or long-term development of the club as it is in business. For short-term success, you're hiring coaches or managers. The statement shows that he took all the parachute payment and threw it to the players, where he should have made sure to have a plan B if anything goes wrong. His actions showed again that there are too many bad managed clubs in the game, and Robert Elston should not worry about Toronto. He should worry instead about Huddersfield, Wakefield and Salford. The big difference between Whitehaven or Keighley and now Leigh are the effects of the competition. The sale at Leigh will influence the qualifiers so much that I'm not sure that we can still call it a fair competition. Enough of my rant. Keep up the good work. Cheers from Switzerland. So there's kind of 2 points there Karsten made, so we'll address them separately. The first one is, you were we were talking about what Derek Beaumont did and whether it was the right or the wrong thing, and I'm kind of in Karsten's situation here of agreeing that he didn't do enough about the medium or long term situation for the club. I kind of feel like Beaumont wanted to come in and be king of Leigh for a few years, ride the high life, and if it didn't start paying for itself, he would have his back out clause, and which is kind of what he's trying to play here. Now, don't get me wrong, setting the stable up for good order for who wants to come in and take it over and run it as a middling part-time championship club isn't a bad thing to do at this stage, but wouldn't it have been better if he thought about a long-term sustainable club that could for a while maybe bounce between or be top end of championship but still be full-time, kind of like London have managed themselves on a lower budget to be a full-time club still.
Or go down a Halifax sort of model of being part-time but managing to play within yourself.
I think when
and still achieve through that.
When you've spent like you've spent and you've got to where you've got to and been on the cusp of a Super League stay, you probably don't want to go back to the. I think you'd look at the London model more than the Halifax model from Leigh's position. But now they're going to have to play the Halifax or the Featherstone model. They don't have a choice in that, and that's because of Derek Beaumont no longer wanting to spend his money. Now he realises he can't have his shot at the big time. That irks me somewhat, even though he did great things for the club. He brought them back to life after they were basically dead, and much credit to him for that, and gave the Leigh supporters a fantastic journey over the last 2.5 years to 3 years.
It wouldn't surprise me if they dropped out of the Championship next year and they went to League One.
It surprised me, but it wouldn't be out of the realms of likelihood now, whereas it would have seemed that way 9 months ago, 12 months ago for sure. So the second point is about worrying about clubs like Huddersfield, Wakefield and Salford, and then the way this is going to influence the competition. I think we should be as worried about Toronto as we are about Huddersfield, because basically they're in the same position pretty much, apart from one main difference is that Huddersfield has got a long legacy of rugby league, so there's more possibility that there's more likelihood that,
there's more likelihood that there's someone whose
money's no longer there, whereas in Toronto,
who was born in Huddersfield, who's gone on and made millions, and then that would possibly want it. There's not at this stage likely to be someone who's there isn't someone who's grown up watching Toronto, is there? And
it's a club that secured full funding for next year by being in the top 8. Whereas with Toronto, it is a case still, unfortunately, of when David Argyle pulls his money, it feels like there's not much there yet, which is not to say that there won't be much there, and is not to say that we want that to be the case. We know they're doing really good stuff. We know that they're doing really good fan initiatives. They're really getting the community to buy into the game.
Their fan engagement weekend this week was brilliant in what they were doing.
Yeah,
and all the little things like bringing the kids, getting the kids part of the squad photo, doing extra things with the players, moving the kickoff time to an afternoon kickoff, an earlier sort of lunchtime kickoff there, all sorts of that was brilliant work. But the fact of the matter, at this stage, they're not in a position to be able to do that long term, because that's just where they are on their development. Yeah, they will almost certainly get there if they carry on, but you can't say that the roots are there yet.
No, but we want them to, grow and grow.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a blow-by-blow every single club, but Wakefield and Salford are totally different situations to both Toronto and Huddersfield and to each other. Wakefield are a club who basically aim for the top 8 and then reset, whilst having reserves and under-19s progressing to try and give them a squad depth. So, different model. Salford don't have anything like that behind them. They've got a small squad now because they've got no money whatsoever. They don't have a rich backer. They don't have anything really backing them, unfortunately, at the moment. So there's a lot of work to do for Salford to stay where they're staying. The odd splash signing like Jackson Hastings might help them out. Influence on the competition of this lease sale. I'll let you. I don't know what you think about this, Tim. What I kind of think is some of these signings that have happened wouldn't have happened without injury. So Leeds would never have signed Jordan Thompson if they didn't have such injury concerns that they've had this year. I just don't see it as a feasible step in my mind. Form and injury, I suppose, to an extent. Then you look at Hull KR. Would Hull KR have wanted Ben Crooks if Heffernan, who was really one of the form centres in the first 6 weeks of the competition, would they have wanted Ben Crooks if Heffernan hadn't got hurt?
Or if Tormins was available.
Yeah, or if Shaw and Carney weren't hurt as well, would they have needed to bring in Craig Hall, for example? So I just think these squads have got themselves back in the position they were if they didn't have the injuries. Some of these squads that have benefited maybe somewhat from, like same with Harrison Hansen, Cahill, and that's
and probably being witnessed about 30 other people as well.
Yeah, but that's kind of, so I see these squads have kind of reset, but wouldn't have needed to reset necessarily the same if they didn't have the same injury issues. So I don't know about talking about unfair. What do you think?
I get where he's coming from. I don't necessarily agree because I think it's just clubs. It wasn't like they all went to one club. It was clubs filling their individual gaps and issues they had with what was available to them because it was available. It wasn't a case of them necessarily targeting. They weren't all vultures picking off the league carcass. It was very much, from the way I read it, that that was open up and offered to them, and they said, "Oh, actually, we could do with strengthening in that position, so we'll bring Ben Crooks in."
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, when you've lost your two best centres, then you need to sign a centre, and when a good one comes available, snap them up. That's a good way to deal with your squad management. There's another one that came in, Tim, that you won't have seen. Came in by email from Paul Chamberlain, who has been a great supporter of the Super League pod this year. One of the quieter voices in terms of social media is not got a presence there, but gets in the fan reviews and chips in to the pot and all that, so I'm really grateful for Paul. So anytime he sends an email, if I can get it into the show in time, I want to get it into the show to thank him. And he says, I have a question for you with regards to the era of Beaumont and Kukash and how it will be perceived. For me, I can't see that they have done anything to progress the game at all, other than paying some players more than they deserve, bearing in mind a lot of that will be journeymen imports. They do not leave either club in better positions. If anything, when you see Fax doing so well and running a reserve side on 350k per year, the money wasted could have been used to put down some real and sustainable roots.
Yeah.
How do you think that
basically
received?
And I think there was definitely an element of paying journeyman players far more than they deserve. I mean, I got into a debate on Twitter this afternoon with someone asking how could Lee have spent their 500 grand parachute payment better. I said simply put in place 10 development programs. Throughout, it doesn't necessarily have to be all round Lee, but if you spent 500 grand, you could spend 10 sets of 50k. You do a match officials development program somewhere to bring through some young referees. You do a women and girls one to get people playing the game. You get some more players in. You can have a media development plan as well. Spend 50k on that. Divide that up. Goes a much longer way in the right hands than it would 500 grand sunk down the back of some sofas that are winging their way over to Australia.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit harsh to say that both of them have left the clubs in like worse positions.
Yeah, because I'm not sure Salford would be any better.
Both are in better positions than they were when the respective guys took over. On the hypothetical that no one had taken over, and they either would have gone out of business or slipped down the league